Howdy, y'all, and welcome to episode 8 of the Barnyard Banter Podcast, where boots meet microphones and agriculture takes center stage.
We're your hosts, Peyton Roberts
and Riley Rinke. We're members of the Axel FFA chapter, and we're on a mission to bring the ag industry to life. One story, one laugh, and one barnyard tale at a time.
Each episode, we'll be chatting with different farmers, ranchers, FFA members, ag teachers, and industry experts out there making a difference in the world of agriculture.
Whether you're hauling hay, feeding cows, planting crops, or simply just curious of where your food comes from, this podcast is for you.
So sit back, grab a sweet tea, or hop on the tractor as we dive into the wild, wonderful, and sometimes downright muddy world of agriculture. Welcome to Barnyard Banter.
First off, we'd like to thank our amazing guests for joining us today as we take a look into the world of agritourism. Peyton, you know what time it is. Trivia time. Where does the kolache originate?
Riley, it's obviously at Czech Stop in West. You know, the place we stop at for the ag trips?
Close enough, I guess. It's actually the Czech Republic.
Speaking of West, Riley, can you introduce our guest today?
Today's guest is Taylor Huffman. Brandon and Taylor Huffman are fourth-generation farmers and are proud parents of Jana and Weston on a 450-acre crop and hay farm in Maryland, complete with the region's first corn maze and iconic pumpkin patch. They hosted tens of thousands of visitors each fall before making a bold pivot in late 2021. They sold most of their holdings, downsized, and relocated to West Texas, a place they'd fallen in love with during their annual visits since 2018. In early 2022, they launched their new chapter in Waco area farming, where they cultivate specialty crops like sunflowers, pumpkins, and strawberries, and invite the public to grow memories through seasonal spring and pumpkin festivals. With Jana and Weston as their inspiration, Brandon and Taylor emphasize on hands-on, fun, community, and family time.
Ms. Huffman, can you tell us a little more about yourself and your business?
Yes, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. So my husband, Brandon, and I own Western Belle Farm. We are considered an agritourism farm. And agritourism, of course, is when you invite the public to your farm to engage them in agriculture and give them experiences they wouldn't otherwise possibly have. So Western Belle opens seasonally for spring events and fall. We grow strawberries, sunflowers, and pumpkins. And honestly, we just love the creative aspect of creating this really fun place on a farm for the community to come.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Can you share the history and purpose behind the agritourism site, like when and why it began?
Yeah, so I'll keep a long story really short. I grew up in the agritourism world. I grew up on Maryland's largest corn maze farm. We opened in the fall with a 35-acre maze with 8 to 9 miles of trails, and people would get lost out in the cornfield. Over the years, we added things like a pumpkin patch and different activities at the farm, but 2020 was the year of pivot for us, like many others. And basically, we took a little trip to Texas after 2020 to get a mental break. And on the plane ride home, my husband looked at me and I looked at him and we said, we don't want to go back to Maryland. So long story short, we sold all of our farms, closed our businesses. I sold real estate full time and had a team. We closed it all down and moved our little family 20 hours away to Central Texas to start over and just do what we love most, which is agritourism. So Western Belle officially began in November 2021.
That's really cool. So what inspired you to combine farming with educational or visitor experiences?
A lot of things, honestly. I always wanted to be a teacher and quickly realized I wasn't actually cut out for being a normal classroom teacher. So what better way than to combine my two passions, which is agriculture and teaching. So we love agritourism. It gives us the opportunity to include the public and share our struggles and our successes at the farm. We love building things and creating a fun place that people get to come visit then. But probably my favorite is our school field trips. We have a little over 7,000 kids come to the farm every year. We get to let them play and have fun, but then they also have to come out with me either to the pumpkin patch in the fall or to the strawberry field in the spring. And I teach them about how we grow that specific crop. They get to pick and eat a strawberry in the spring, and they get to pick a pumpkin to take home in the fall.
Oh, that's really cute.
So what type of visits or activities do you offer? Like farm tours, you-pick, harvesting, workshops, farm stays?
Yeah, so we have over 20 activities at the farm that we open for each festival season. So things like barn slides, barrel train rides, jump pillow. We have a farm animal barn where people get to meet our animals and pet them and learn about them. But probably my favorite piece of our business is the you-pick aspect. Mm-hmm. So we push water uphill to grow crops here in Central Texas, from the extreme highs to the lows of the heat and the rain. It honestly is so difficult to grow our specialty crops here. Our soil type is also not ideal for what we grow. But creating that you-pick experience for people is what I'd say our number one passion is. We get a lot of people that move into the DFW area, but they grew up somewhere in the Midwest where picking strawberries every May was normal. So they drive to come pick our strawberries and give that experience to their children that growing up in Texas, it might not be that common. Or same thing with the pumpkin patch. We really fight hard to grow pumpkins here, but creating that actual hayride to a pumpkin patch, cut a pumpkin off a vine, that's something people crave, and we work hard to provide.
Wow. So on y'all's website, I was reading about it, and y'all have something called a pumpkin cannon. What is that?
So, fun fact, my dad actually built it. It came and originated from an idea we had. There used to be something called pumpkin chunkin' in Delaware, and it was an annual competition where people would bring these homemade trebuchets and cannons and try to shoot as far as they could. It was a competition. Unfortunately, all good things must come to an end. It got shut down due to like zoning and insurance issues, something like that. But anyways, my dad had built a cannon. I grew up at a young age running it. I was my parents' free labor at like 13 and 14 years old, operating this cannon for hours on end. So you basically get to get up on it, aim it, and then you have to like pull this lever like really, really hard, and it shoots the pumpkin out at 75 miles per hour typically. And so we create these really cool targets that you shoot at. Right now we have a giant semi-truck that my husband and brother made a big like robot transformer out of, and we stood it up using a crane, and you shoot at it. So we try to, when I say we have fun for all ages at the farm, we certainly have fun for all ages.
So that's open during the fall season?
Yeah, the pumpkin cannon is the fall season only. We also have apple cannons, which are more geared towards kids. Adults have fun too, but the kids can't pull and shoot the pumpkin cannon. So we have apple and pumpkin cannons, yes.
Very interesting.
So besides these different cannons, how do y'all integrate hands-on elements into the farm?
That's a great question. Honestly, it's really just the basic experiences that we try to create that you really take for granted, right? Just being outside on a farm in the open air. A lot of these kids that come to us from field trips don't really leave the city very often. So just coming out to the farm, getting fresh air, playing in a giant bin full of corn kernels. You know, maybe they've never touched a corn kernel before. They find it so funny that they get them all in their pockets. And then, you know, they go home and they have corn in their pockets. And it's just those little simple joys in life that I think we create that people really enjoy.
So how do you manage visitor flow and safety, like especially around the fields?
Yeah, that is a great question. In our world, agritourism, liability insurance is so important and incredibly expensive because visitor safety is honestly the number one priority, and sometimes accidents do happen. Thankfully, Texas has an Agritourism Protection Act that helps protect farmers from basic things that really truly aren't your fault, like slips and falls in the field or things like that. But we really try to be careful about things. For example, we always have a water wagon on standby that's full of water with a high pressure fire hose type thing. We ended up having to use it 2 years ago in the fall. It was an incredibly dry year, and we were mowing our parking lot as low as we could just in case, and someone threw a cigarette out and it started a small little fire. So we pulled that wagon out and got the fire out before it spread and got vehicles. But I'm sure you heard about the fire in Central Texas at another farm that engulfed like 70 some vehicles. We're always just having to think ahead and create little things, or we'll build something and then realize, you know what, we need to actually revamp that. And this summer's project, we're having to redo our seesaw. So yeah, we're always innovating, trying to think ahead, and we use our children as testers.
So does your staff normally help out if there's any problems, or do y'all take care of that by yourself?
So my husband and I are super involved. We are the ones that they have to call if there's ever issues, like with a customer, or for example, that parking lot fire, they right away radio us. We're always at the farm every time we're open. But we do have a lot of great staff that step in and help take care of little things, but it's definitely my husband and I that are the ones that have to answer the call.
Yeah, so how do you measure your impact, economic or environmental or social, in the local community?
That is a great question. So I actually have just such a passion for agritourism that I do donate and spend a lot of time in the industry and trying to help others. I've got several farmers from all over the country that call me regularly, ask for advice, help, input. I actually sit on a board called NAFTMA. It's specifically for the agritourism industry, and it's worldwide. And I'm one of the board members because I truly believe there's connecting agriculture to our community is really important. So I do everything I can between field trips and volunteering on boards to help promote it. But to get back to your main question, we draw people from all over the state of Texas for our different festivals, and our hope is to help pull these people in, but then spread them to other area businesses, whether they're asking for the best restaurant or a place to get the best kolache. We try to pull them in, but then share them within the community.
So what all are your roles on that board that you just mentioned?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we create a community and connection among other agritourism industry people across the world. We meet annually. This year's convention is in Orlando, Florida, and it's so much fun. We get to tour farms, other agritourism farms. We have a big expo where all the vendors that, like seed supply companies and jar good companies, all the things that we all use, they all come set up at a vendor trade show. My job is just to help spread the word, help get people involved, and help make connections. I really enjoy the conventions. I actually just got back from one this week in Chicago. And you think, okay, how are their farms in Chicago? And honestly, I was kind of like, I don't know that I want to go to Chicago. But there are some incredible agritourism farms right outside of Chicago that we spent 3 days touring and networking with other farm owners from around the world. So,
what's been your favorite other agritourism spot that's not y'all's own that you've been to?
Okay, I'm going to give a shout out to Cherry Crest Adventure Farm. If you're ever in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, which we call God's country because it is perfect, the most beautiful farms, corn that's 12 feet tall without trying. I mean, the most beautiful real estate you can find. Cherry Crest is family owned. They were a dairy farm. They got into agritourism when the dairy farm industry was kind of tanking back in the late 90s. And it's just incredible. It's like a Disney World on a farm, and everything is pristine, well thought out. They have a whole ag education barn with hands-on experiences. You can hold baby chicks. They have like a cow milking thing. So it's kind of funny. We had a pumpkin patch, but in the summer, our kids always referred to that as the fun farm, and we would take our kids there in the summers. So highly recommend it.
Do you partner with local schools, nonprofits, or community groups, such as donation programs or educational tours?
Yeah, so we do a lot of field trips to the farm where we invite the students out to learn about whatever we're growing. They get to rotate through activities. I want to tell you one of my best memories from Western Belle in the past 4 years of field trips. I had a little boy. I always teach them the lesson. It's always me. And then at the very end of the field trip, I wave goodbye and thank them for coming on their way out. And I had a little boy from an inner city school in Waco hug me and tell me this was the best day of his life and he can't wait to bring his brother and sisters back. To which then his teacher replied, he won't be back. They have 13 children and they can't afford it. And I was like, that is horrible. Like that just, it's just something that you take for granted sometimes. And there's some kids that, other than this field trip, they might not have had this experience. Mm-hmm. And so I really do love doing the field trips and getting the kids out to the farm. But going back to, I guess, the impact and donations, I actually on my way here dropped off a donation basket to Caritas. We donate a lot of our leftover food from our concessions. We buy food grade apples to shoot out of the cannons. So at the end of the year, we always have boxes of perfectly edible apples that we've had in cold storage that we donate. We donate hundreds of tickets a year to different benefits and fundraisers and things. We have certain groups every year, like foster family groups and women's abuse shelters, that we comp their admissions and allow them to come out and enjoy a day with their family. So we really love using the farm as a vehicle to hopefully make an impact.
Yeah, that's great. So do you get more schools during the fall or spring season?
That's a great question. Fall for sure. We do about 9 weeks of field trips, and by the end of that, I want to crawl in a hole and hide. I am so tired. Those kids wear me out. Our spring actually started because we were so booked for fall that we only had spring dates to offer them. Mm-hmm. So we do about 8 to 9 weeks in the fall and 4 weeks in the spring.
Gotcha. So what local schools currently bring their kids for field trips? And if schools want to get involved that are local to the Waco area, how can they?
Yeah, so we honestly really underestimated the demand for field trips at the farm. We get from all over McLennan County, of course, but then we have kids that come from as far as Belton and Glen Rose, Cranfill's Gap. Mm-hmm. Honestly, some of the schools I have to look up because I've never heard of them, or they're so far away I didn't realize they were there. So they literally can just fill out a form on our website. I keep a list of all the teachers and I email them every year. We actually just opened up booking for fall field trips on Friday and we're 90% booked. So it books really quickly. But that's also because we limit the number of kids per day to ensure that it's organized and they actually learn something. They're not just coming to the farm to run like a crazy animal. Like we keep it pretty structured and make sure that ag piece is in there.
So how else do you market your farm? Do you use social media, email, local partnerships?
Yeah, that is another good one. So, so funny. I started running my family's agritourism business when I was 16. And I decided I just need to graduate high school. I'm tired of this. I just want to be working and on the farm. So I started going to college when I graduated early at 16 for marketing. And I very quickly realized I don't really fit like a mold per se. So I just kind of started self-teaching myself. And then also I do credit my real estate career in trying to teach me to be creative and find creative ways to market. So I'm self-taught, but for some reason I do have people from all over that reach out to me and ask for advice. I have a marketing call set up for Wednesday, actually, just helping another farm friend in Virginia, give them some tips and tricks on marketing, but no formal education here. When we moved to Texas, we were honestly broke and we had to build this business. And so I was like, how can I market for the least amount of money out of pocket? So I would just honestly hand out free tickets to people. I remember being in line buying like an odd amount of something from Walmart. And the two girls behind me like kind of giggled, and I like looked at them and I was like, oh, it was mason jars, actually. And it was for our sunflower festival. We sell mason jars and you can fill it with sunflowers for a set price. And I was like, don't worry, I don't can this much. I actually have a sunflower festival getting ready to come up. And then I handed them some free tickets. And then the next thing you know, we had all these Baylor girls at the farm to get pictures in the flower fields because I handed out those free tickets. So I just do a lot of like odd marketing and a lot of social media, just building a social media presence. So
Yeah, social media is such a big thing, and that's like something we've really found doing the podcast with like Ag Communications about how much social media can make an impact. So how do you highlight your agritourism offerings to stand out? Visual storytelling, local events, influencer visits?
Yeah, so to get into the details, the number one thing I focus on at the farm is photo ops, because in today's world, social media is the way to go. We don't spend a dime on print, advertising, billboards, radio. Honestly, we do all social media. But along with social media, you need good, engaging pictures and content. So we really focus on building really nice photo ops that people literally come to the farm specifically for those photo ops. So I focus on that primarily. And then I did recently get into the social media influencer. It's such a weird world, right? That people can literally make a really good living doing social media influencing. I actually have one coming out this fall that is a huge influencer, has over, I believe, 100,000 followers on Instagram and Facebook, like really good engagement too. But she cost a pretty penny to get out to the farm. It was several thousand, and I had to comp her a couple nights in our Airbnb. So we have an Airbnb property that I use as well. And it's honestly the number one way to market is to use a big influencer with a big following and get them to promote your farm. So that's 2025 for you.
So what were some of the biggest challenges in running an agritourism operation?
Okay, so definitely the seasonality of it. I have no brain in the month of October. My memory is shot. I'm very overwhelmed. But if you look at me in December, I live a normal life. My family eats dinner at a normal time. We see each other, actually. So I'd say the seasonality, like having these crazy spurts where life is really hard, but then having the complete opposite and you're like really laid back. But for us in Texas, the number one challenge is the weather. Our first year, we had a total of 15 inches of rain and our average is 34. So having such a dry year was really hard. And then we got smacked with 2023, which was also one of the top 10 driest years on record for our area. And we had 21 or 22 inches that year. So 2 back-to-back droughts basically ran our tanks out of water, which we were using to irrigate our pumpkins and our flowers and now our strawberries. And then go to our third year, our Sunflower Festival basically was the worst thing I've ever experienced. We had 15 inches of rain in the month of May, which is when our Sunflower Festival is. And no one comes to a Sunflower Festival without a field of sunflowers. So experiencing 2 years of record droughts to then I didn't know it could rain so much in Texas. I'd say that's the hardest part. Getting the people here is honestly easier than running an agritourism farm in Maryland. We've had people drive from El Paso, from parts of Arkansas, Houston, Dallas, San Antonio all day long for our flower fields. So that's actually surprisingly easy. It's the dealing with the weather that's been the hardest.
So what were some of the things you did to like help out your farm during those dry seasons?
Honestly, we had to be innovative. So I would say the pumpkins were most affected in the driest years, and the maize was as well. The maize was only about waist high, which honestly people seemed to like. They were like, I like that I didn't feel claustrophobic walking through a maze that was towering over my head. So I was like, well, that works. The pumpkins, we just had to buy in more than we expected because we weren't able to grow. We didn't have the water to grow as many as we needed. The flowers getting completely rotted in the field twice, that was painful. I share updates with our followers, the struggles, the successes. Well, that was a struggle. And I shared updates, and some people still showed out. We had a 1 acre piece that thankfully grew because it was mostly cow manure. It was a pasture. We had just recently converted to a sunflower field. So the cow manure soil saved us because it was draining, whereas our other clay soil was just holding on to that moisture and never drying. And so that was terrible. But we had a 1 acre field instead of 5 acres. So some people still showed up, but I had to actually buy sunflowers in pre-cut from a florist. And while people could still take them home, it wasn't the same as cutting it out of the field yourself. And so I tried to be innovative, kind of backfired, lost a lot of money that spring. Life moves on. Hopefully it's not the same next year.
So how is the farm budget structured, balancing crop production, agritourism operations, and staffing costs?
Oh, that is a great one. So farm budget is honestly really challenging. We are so reliant on the weather, and unfortunately it makes it hard to staff because the weather can change last minute. So we try to scale back on staffing on weekends that we know the weather's not going to be ideal because staffing cost can eat us alive. We do not make a great ton of money on our U-pick crops, to be honest. It's more of an attraction to get people to the farm, but at the end of the day, with our time involved, the cost involved with planting the crops, we don't actually do that well. When we grew pumpkins in Maryland, we had 20 acres and we did really well on our pumpkin crop. But here, because we lose a lot to the heat too, because it can be so hot in October still, we actually don't do that well on our crops. Our strawberries, for example, 2 years ago, we broke even on them. And that was painful considering it was everyday backbreaking work to grow those strawberries. But we learned a lot. We changed some things. And this past year was our second year and we actually did much better. So we learn.
Yeah, that's good.
What sensory experiences do you prioritize?
Sure. So honestly, the biggest part of agritourism is getting that hands-on experience, right? So the number one, I'd say, popular activity would be the corn bin. And that's just because it's a giant bin full of corn that honestly kids of all ages enjoy, especially the little ones, just getting to dig in it with the little toys that we have, fill up a cup, as basic as it seems. They do love that. People also love feeding the animals. They can buy little feed cups and go down to the animal barn and we have Scottish Highlands, those hairy cows with the horns. They love just getting their hand completely soaked in slobber as they feed them. Me, on the other hand, not so much. But people love that. And so we also have a different type of sensory. We have some people that will reach out and say that they have children that are maybe a little more sensitive to like crowds and noises and things. So we will open up the farm an hour early for them and allow them to come experience the farm by themselves before most of the people come, and it does get a little more crazy. So yeah, we don't have a formal official sensory day, but it's definitely on my list.
Oh, that's great.
So I know you talked about how you teach the kids. So what exactly educational are you teaching them during the different seasons? Like, does it vary per season, like for each festival, or how do you do that?
Sure. So in the fall, we focus on the pumpkins and we take the kids out to the pumpkin patch, explain to them that these pumpkins didn't just get thought about yesterday. We were planning for these pumpkins all the way back in the spring when we ordered the seed, and then in June when we actually planted the pumpkins. And then my favorite, honestly, for educational is probably our strawberry season. And that's just because they are more work involved, and I get to explain that to the students, and then they also get to try one. I tell them how delicious and amazing fresh grown strawberries are compared to the grocery store berries. And then they get to taste one. And I've had so many children that are like, I don't like strawberries. And I'm like, well, go ahead and try one and tell me what you think. And oh, I love these strawberries. And it's because I can explain, well, when you come to the farm to pick them off the plant yourself, you're waiting till peak ripeness, and the natural sugar level is at the highest point, which means they're going to be super juicy, super sweet. And I get a lot of believers then, people that didn't like the hard underripe strawberries at the store, and now they love the fresh picked strawberries.
Yeah, strawberries are not my favorite, so I'll definitely have to come try that out.
It's fun fact, we don't really eat grocery store strawberries, but when they're in season, you can bet we go out back and pick some fresh ones.
Yeah, I would too if I had it right there. So we have some quick fire questions, so you're just going to choose one or the other. So coffee or tea?
Absolutely sweet tea.
Okay, pumpkins or corn?
Probably pumpkins.
Fall or spring?
I'm going to say spring.
Okay, and then maize or the pumpkin cannon?
Ooh. Probably the pumpkin cannon.
It's time for the Barnyard Banter Ag Report. Would you like to tell us about what crops y'all will be growing in the fall?
Sure. So our pumpkins will obviously still be growing in the fall. We have to keep them watered for their entire lifespan. But a little fun fact about strawberries is if you want them in the spring, you have to plant them in the fall. So we will be getting a little over 18,000 strawberry plants and delivered to us the first week of October, which is terrible timing. And we're going to be planting them basically at night by light because that's the free time we have. We hand plant them using a water wheel machine. And we will plant all 18,000 in probably about 2 to 3 days. And then we will water them and maintain them all the way until harvest, which is usually starting the last week of March. So we will be growing something at the farm this winter, and it's strawberries.
All right, Peyton, how can our listeners get involved or even suggest topics they want to hear?
If you want to stream our podcast, you can find us on our YouTube or Spotify page. And if you want to get involved and suggest topics or future guests you'd like to see, you can DM us on our Instagram page at barnyard.banter.podcast, linked below.
All right, Mrs. Huffman, what advice would you give someone that's interested in a career in agritourism?
Honestly, the biggest advice I could give would be to just go for it. There's so many different forms of agritourism that even from a small you-cut flower field, if you only have 5 acres of land or even less, honestly, you can run a pretty good you-pick or cut flower production farm. And then, of course, there's larger operations. If your family is in the produce business and struggling a little bit, just creating that direct-to-consumer contact can sometimes take your business much further.
So how can our listeners connect with you or contact you if they have more questions about your business or agritourism in general?
Absolutely. I love to talk about agritourism, so anyone is welcome to call or email anytime. Our website is westernbellefarm.com. Belle is B-E-L-L-E. You can reach out on Facebook, Instagram. We even have a TikTok, and it has a pretty good following, so go check us out on social for sure, or our website.
All right. Thank you so much for listening to our podcast.
We are excited about our upcoming episodes that will air the first and third Mondays of every month.
Next on our podcast, we'll dive into everything FFA. Thank you for watching.
Peace,
love, ag.